you like haunts?
Yes.
Do you like immersive theater?
Yes.
Do you like escape rooms?
Yes.
What's the safe word?
My haunt life. Hello and welcome to the My Haunt Life podcast. I'm Mike.
And I'm Russell.
And Russell, Halloween season is just about over, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's been kind of an odd one, hit and miss as far as events and things like that. But I've managed to fit in some fun stuff, and it's like it's funny this season, Mike. I seem to be leaning more than haunts. I end up doing a lot of theater stuff this season.
Yeah, I've noticed. That's why we haven't hung out a lot.
I will make you a theater nerd somehow, someday.
I don't know.
I like a challenge. But I mean, last time we got together, we had talked about Fright Dome, which was in Las Vegas. And you and I wanted to make it out to Freakling Brothers that weekend, and we didn't have the time.
Right.
Just because Fright Dome lasted so late into the night, and we had to fly out the next day. But I went back to Las Vegas for several reasons, and I did manage to make it to Freakling Brothers. And once again, have to give props to the Freakling Bros horror shows in Las Vegas. It's their 25th anniversary year, and congratulations on making it, a quarter of a century, guys. The praise that you have received is well deserved. Mike, they're still extremely strong. They're some of the best haunts, and this year, actually, I've heard from several people who managed to make it to Las Vegas for the first time to see them. The weekend that I went, Mike, that I met several friends from New York, and John from Philly was there.
Okay, Mr. Name Drop, get on with it.
I'm going to continue name dropping, dude. So met a whole bunch of people from New York and Chicago and St. Louis, and lots of people were all in town for one weekend, and we all met. And at various times, we're doing.
But why were they all in town?
Well,
what was the common thread?
Many of them attempted the victim experience this year. Some met with success. Some did not make it all the way through. Proud of all of them.
Oh, yeah. It takes so much just to even show up.
Yeah, even to walk through that door is an achievement in personal integrity and fortitude. And yeah, definitely huge respect for each and every one of them, however far they got. Yeah, I did not want to attempt the victim experience this year.
Yes, you did. What do you? Don't even try right now.
Yes, I wanted to, but I also am smart enough to know that I wasn't ready this year.
Yeah.
With all the medical stuff, with personal stuff that was going on, I just knew that I wasn't mentally and physically in a place where I could tackle it, which is a lesson I partially learned by the last time I attempted it. So, but yeah, you're right. I did want to, but I was smart enough not to.
Yep. Same with me. I mean, it would have been nice to have bragging rights about being the only people to do it 3 times successfully, but
I don't need those bragging rights.
I don't care anymore. Yeah. We've proved our points.
Yeah, I have nothing to prove to anyone. So, but no, congratulations to all who attempted it this year. Heard it was more intense in certain ways. They sign NDAs, so I haven't heard very specific descriptions, but I've heard enough to know that there's a couple of quiet moments apparently that freak people out, and also it's very physically intense. So, but the Freakling Brothers normal haunts, that seems like the wrong word to use for those guys, and the Coffin Maze, Mike, is back and as strong as ever, and the Vampire Maze, Castle Vampire, is back, and Gates of Hell is back, and they had a new room in Gates of Hell, which I just told you there was a great effect in. But,
yeah.
I can't obviously tell you what the room was.
No, I don't want to know.
I know you don't. Yeah, I'm really glad I made it because they're such strong haunts.
Good. I mean, how were they compared to last year? And were there big changes or?
There were some minor tweaks here and there, not huge changes though. So more demon mucus. And if you went through the Coven of 13, you know what I mean lots of more demon mucus, which I guess you can never have enough. But I would like to say, since I mentioned I mentioned one person, Gladys, Steve, Dan, Brian, Jason, Omar, Tom, Kevin, Justin, Deanna. I hope I haven't forgotten anybody. Carl.
And as he's saying that, he has his magic mirror up.
No, I don't.
And I see Jason.
Wow, do you remember the magic mirror?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
I think, is Magic Mirror, was that only the Midwest and East Coast?
Romper Room.
Romper Room, yeah.
I don't know. I saw it, and I was on the East Coast.
They never said Russell.
Really?
Never.
Did they say Rusty?
So I don't think so, because I was always disappointed, and I asked my mom, like, why doesn't anybody there know I exist?
I'm not going to make the obvious joke.
I still have issues with that, Mike, to this day. Oh my God, all of my problems started with Romper Room. Oh my God, Mike.
We need to call Mr. Green Jeans.
Wow. I'm sorry, I'm having a moment. Where were we? Vegas? What?
You were name dropping.
I was name dropping.
Through the magic mirror.
I hope before we got distracted, I hope I listed everyone who went through. It's just like everyone who I ran into that weekend, and that was all within like 3 days that I saw all those people.
Yeah,
it was insane. It was ridiculous.
Victim brings them out.
So, the victim experience. If you're looking for something extremely intense, consider it. But as I said to everyone who's ever asked me about it, know yourself well before you attempt it. And again, Freakling Bros horror shows in Las Vegas, they are some of the best haunts I've ever been to. I think you would agree, Mike.
Oh yeah, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, they make us go to. I mean,
we want to go to Vegas every year.
Yeah.
We literally travel to another state to do haunts. So anyway, on the website, you can look them up, freaklingbros.com. On Facebook, look up Freakling Bros. Also on Instagram and Twitter, Freakling Bros. They also have a YouTube channel, which we'll throw that link into the show notes.
And speaking of bros, you also went to Zach Bagan's Haunted Museum while you were there.
Wow, nice segue. Zach Baggins from Ghost Adventurers.
Ghost Adventures.
Oh, Ghost Adventures, pardon me. He has opened a haunted museum in Vegas. And Mike, we went on, I think, the 10th or 9th or 10th day that it was open.
Okay.
We went on Friday the 13th, which was kind of cool. They gave us a nice little souvenir ticket because we were there on Friday the 13th.
Oh, that's cool.
So this is getting a lot of attention because it's a new a tourist attraction in Vegas. It literally is a haunted museum. Obviously, Zach Baggins' career, he has encountered many haunted items. He's done a lot of ghost investigations, paranormal investigations. If you follow his adventures on television, that's what you've seen. This is a museum which is set up in one of the oldest residences in the Vegas area, apparently. You can learn a little bit of the history of the home when you're there. Here's the thing. It's a museum filled with possibly haunted objects.
Possibly haunted. It has haunted in the name of the place.
Allegedly haunted, probably haunted. They do let you know. Here, before I get into that, there's pros and cons to the whole experience. It is not a museum where you go in and you can wander through and spend your time.
What?
It's not. Which is what you think of when you hear the word museum.
So it's not haunted and it's not a museum.
No, I didn't say it's not haunted. Okay. So it's a lead guided experience. So they lead you from room to room and they point out objects in each of the rooms and they tell you the history of certain objects in the room. I recommend this for that guided tour because you see so many objects and so much cool stuff. Things that have been owned by celebrities in the past that are important in Vegas history. He's also brought things from other areas of the country to this museum to put them on display. There is a Dybbuk box. There is a haunted doll. And there is the famous house that Zach Baggins bought with the haunted staircase. He brought a portion of that to this museum in Vegas. And here is the thing about the haunting aspect of this. They actually don't allow underage people into those rooms. They will stop the tour and say, okay, we need to seriously know who's under the age of 18. It's like this for safety concerns, for liability reasons. Like you do not get to enter this room, just in case you are sensitive, in case you're an empath, a medium, whatever. It's like if you're underage, you cannot go in certain areas of the museum. Be forewarned of that, because like I in a couple of the tour groups around me, I noticed younger people feeling a little disappointed because like the whole tour group would go into a room and they'd have to stay outside.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, and it's and I'm sure teens watch his TV adventures.
Teen girls probably.
Yes, exactly is what I saw. Teen girls being disappointed. So there are things which they are concerned enough about the history of the item, the spiritual history of the item, that they only allow of age people to be in the same room with the item. There are, I will say this, there was a moment on the tour, Mike, where the tour guide was, introducing a room, and suddenly there was rapping from inside the room. And the tour guide went, okay, did anyone else hear that? And of course, several of us who were standing close to the door said yes. And she said, that's not a noise that we're familiar with. Like that's something. And we entered the room and there was no one in the room. Mm. So the rapping came from behind a door where there was no one there when we walked into the room. So that was the one thing on my tour that was like, okay, that's kind of squeaky.
That's squeaky?
Squeaky. That's kind of like iffy as far as...
where does... go back, squeaky.
It's a slang term that someone at my work uses. And so for some reason that came into my head.
All right. I'm working with cartoons too long.
I think I've been working in cartoons too long. So yeah, that was a weird moment. They do have beautiful, beautiful displays. It's just, I can't express how beautiful this museum is on the inside. And I wish the guided tour were even longer. And we were in there, I believe, for almost 90 minutes.
Oh, cool. So
it's a small house by modern standards, even though it was a huge residence at one point in the Las Vegas history. Fascinating, beautifully laid out, beautiful displays, tons and tons of stuff to look at. In the middle of this, I don't want to give too much away, but in the middle of this, you might have what I would say is a mini haunt experience.
Nice.
And I don't want to say anything else about that. There is a beautiful... The highlights for me were... like the Dybbuk box, the haunted doll was very interesting. They have items from Ed Gein's barn.
That's cool.
Which was fascinating. And I will say this, inside that room, there is a picture I had never, ever seen of Gein. And it's so creepy because he's standing next to a Christmas tree. And if you know the history of him, like the idea of him standing next to a Christmas tree, like having a happy holiday, is a really weird, creepy image to have in your brain.
I can't wait to go.
Yeah, so yeah, there's beautiful imagery. If you're I like circuses and sideshow stuff. There's some elements of that throughout the museum. There is a beautiful, I guess you'd call it a diorama of a working circus that is, and it's just one of those things like where else can you put this? It's a piece of history. They don't even make things like this anymore. Lots of fascinating displays. I recommend checking out because it is such a beautiful set of displays. But I will say I wish the guided tour had moved a little bit slower and allowed more time to explore. But also I was there near the opening of the run, so it was very crowded, Mike, and I think they might have been trying to put people through quickly.
Oh, yeah, especially during October.
Yeah,
on Friday the 13th.
On Friday the 13th. So I'm hoping that actually the tour might be a little slower on regular days. So highly recommend it for the creepiness factor.
Did they allow you to take pictures?
You are not allowed to take pictures on the inside.
I figured.
So there is a gift shop with some information about some of the items, and you can get lots of merchandise with Zach Bagan's name on it. So
it sounds from your description that it's kind of like a cross between Museum of Death and Dearly Departed in a way.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I would say higher production value than those. But yeah, it's along the same lines.
Cool.
Like creepy items tied to famous deaths, sometimes to famous haunted cases. They do have a couple of things that I actually don't want to spoil some of it, but there are some things tied to celebrities that have passed who are important to the Vegas history. So I would recommend checking it out if you're a Zach Baggins fan or if you are a fan of creepy haunted stuff.
Cool.
Glad I went, definitely. You can find their website at thehauntedmuseum.com, and on Facebook, look up Z Baggins Haunted Museum X. And I did some research. I couldn't find a specific dedicated Twitter or Instagram feed for Zach Baggins Haunted Museum yet. However, if you search Zach Baggins Haunted Museum as a hashtag on Instagram and Twitter, you will find people are hashtagging it like crazy.
So speaking of dead people, you did another thing in Vegas.
You are just Segway King today. Yes, hanging out with all those friends that I mentioned who came in town for the Freakling Brothers experience. We hung out several times. We ate lots of good food. And we went and did the Fear the Walking Dead survival attraction, which is located in downtown Vegas. If you're familiar with Vegas, there's an area called the Fremont St area, and it's now known as the Fremont St Experience because it's got lighted signs overhead that light up at night. It's sort of a shopping casino. Touristy area nearby. There's lots of shopping and fun stuff to distract you and keep your senses overloaded.
It's the original Vegas.
Yeah,
right?
It's the original Vegas, definitely. And they're trying to upgrade it to newer, slicker stuff. So Fear the Walking Dead survival attraction is based on the Fear the Walking Dead show. And from their description on the website, it's the newest thrill attraction in Las Vegas, a multi-sensory experience featuring an interactive 3D motion ride. And it's now open at the Fremont St Experience. So, Mike, this is a weird combo of mini haunt. It sort of feels like the Universal Horror Nights Walking Dead maze a little bit. There's some interactivity in the fact that in a couple of the rooms, you actually have tasks that you have to perform, which was kind of cool, which adds, it wasn't necessarily an escape room vibe, but there were a video feed would come into a room where you're looking around and like, quick, hurry, you have to accomplish this. And then we would in the room have to put things in a certain order or accomplish certain things, and before we could leave the room. And it ends with, as I said, a 3D motion ride, which is also an interactive experience because they give you a gun and you get to shoot zombies.
That's pretty rad.
And it's fairly long too. And the hysterical thing about this is you're on a moving vehicle in the ride. So, of course, the vehicle does everything from careen out of control to crash through things. And so it is a motion ride with a gun in your hand, which is sort of like a video game experience, plus the motion ride at the same time.
So is it like those rides at Disney and California Adventure?
More active than that.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it's like you're talking about like the fun fair.
Yeah.
I'm drawing a blank on the name of that ride.
And the Toy Story
yes,
one?
the Toy Story characters. But yeah, it's very similar to that, except it's more active and lots more blood.
And is this only open during October?
No, it seems to be a tourist attraction, which they are planning on having open for quite some time.
Cool.
So if you want to learn more about that, you can go to vegasexperience.com. And if you search for Fear Walking Dead Survival Attraction Las Vegas, you will find it. And again, this is one of those things where if you look up Fremont St Experience, you can find all of the information about this rather than looking up specifically the Fear the Walking Dead survival attraction. If you look at, it's the initials FSE 89101 on Facebook, or on Instagram, search Fremont Street. And on Twitter, it's the abbreviation for Fremont St Experience Las Vegas. So on Twitter, search for FSELV. And again, if you search Fremont St Experience and then you search for Fear the Walking Dead, you will find this attraction, I guarantee you.
So you said you were in Vegas for the weekend.
Yes.
And when you were telling me about your plans to go to Vegas,
You said I was insane?
right, because there was something happening on Saturday that we had tickets to in LA.
Yeah.
And you flew to Vegas Friday, flew back Saturday morning, and then did you drive back
I
Sunday?
drove back on Sunday.
Okay, and then you drove back. So
And then I drove back here on Tuesday.
so instead of just staying in Vegas on Saturday, you decided to come back to LA like a crazy person.
Yeah.
And
What's your point?
we met up to go to Horror Rewind.
It was worth coming back from Vegas to hang at a haunt with you.
That now you're definitely crazy.
Now I'm gushing.
But yeah, we went
However,
to
talk about this.
because it's finally something I did. Sorry, we can't all have jet setter lives like you and be going everywhere.
Frequent flyer points, dude.
And it helps with the job too. So yeah, so we went to Horror Rewind, which was a pop-up event for the re-release of a bunch of movies, classic movies on Blu-ray. Some of the movies were like 28 Days Later, Carrie, Black Swan, Child's Play, The Fly, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, Return of the Living Dead. And if you went to this, it was amazing. Like there's no going around that. It was awesome because there's a little thing we like to call delusion that happens that is always on the top of everybody's lists when they do it. And the team behind Delusion helped put this together. So you can just imagine what this was like. And it was like Delusion did a haunt.
Like based on classic horror movies.
Yeah. And it was awesome. And so when you have pop-ups like this, it's basically marketing to get people excited for the re-release of movies and everything.
Well, we recently talked about the It pop-up event.
Yeah.
And this is sort of a different version of that, a more intense version than It was. Because this was actually presented by 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment and something called The Great Company and Delusion as a team. And one thing we should mention before we get into the actual pop-up, the reason for this is because they've re-released these like 19 horror or horror-ish films, and what they did is they commissioned new artwork for the cover by a Mexican-Cuban-American artist named Orlando Aracena, and the artwork on these new Blu-rays is so cool, so fascinating, very odd interpretations of iconic imagery. And literally, this horror pop-up was to promote those re-releases, which are available now, by the way. They came out in mid-September. And if you search for these films, I'm sure you will find the new images. They're awesome. But anyway, let's get back to the horror pop-up.
Well, wait, back to the movies again. So one of the things that they did also is if you went there, they had all of these movies for a very discounted price.
Yeah.
And they're on Blu-ray. So if you're the person that still collects movies and buys like physical media, it was a steal because I think they were like $7 or $8.
I think they were $7 there, and also you got a small print of the artwork of the movie that you bought.
Like
that was why I bought Return of the Living Dead.
If this is the future of how things are gonna go, like I'm so excited because I will buy stuff I don't need just because of this.
The pop-up was amazing.
So the actual pop-up, it had basically scenes from 4 of these movies. So you walk in and you meet with the receptionist and she tells you a story about the person that owns this place is an art collector of sorts. And surprise, you're his new collection. And then you get to tour all of the different art installations, quote unquote. And the first one we come to, Russell, I'm letting you take this because this is one of your favorite movies.
It is truly one of my favorite movies of all time. But you got to that room before I did, and you turned around, and I think because you know that it's one of my favorite movies, you turned around and you looked at me with this grin on your face, and you said something like, "Oh, Russell," and I looked past you, and all I saw was the blue shimmering curtain. And I knew instantly. And what you did is you walked into the room and you walked onto the stage at the prom from the movie Carrie, and Carrie was standing there covered in blood, and they don't recreate the scenes from the movie. You actually sort of step into the moment with the performers. So you were a little bit ahead of me, and she welcomed you guys. She welcomed you because Deb was also there with us, and I want to point to one specific thing in a second. But I mean, she welcomed you and like, hey, like it's such a great day. It's my prom, and like she's covered in blood and she seems happy. And she like, didn't she offer the roses for you to smell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because it was prom, she's like, everybody can take pictures, and that's another cool point of this thing.
Yeah, they did allow you to video stuff. They allowed you to take pictures, and she actually did pose with pictures with the people who want to take pictures. And then she, and here's a moment. This is one of those moments where the actress was so on and in character. She was talking about Tommy and the roses that Tommy gave her for the prom, and she said she was nervous, and she stated that she didn't know how to dance, which is also a thread from the film as well, and the fact that she's so nervous about dancing in front of the classmates that have made so much fun of her. And she looked at me and she said, "Would you help me learn how to dance?" And there was this moment where I said, "Sure," and I stepped forward, and she was about to position my hands, and Deb giggled, and dude,
It was perfect.
the actress's reaction, the actress spun on Deb and said, "Did you just laugh?" And it was the look on her face, on Deb's face, was just like, oh my God. Like Deb honestly thought she had hurt Carrie's feelings. And it was such an amazing moment because this actress was so on point, so completely in character, spun on Deb and said, like, "Did you laugh?" I'm like, "No, you laughed at me." And Deb was like, no, I didn't. And so then she turned and faced everyone in the group and started launching into the "Mama was right. Like, you're all going to laugh at me. She said you were all going to laugh at me." And she started quoting the lines from the film. And at that point, sort of the curator character that we met walked back in.
Yeah, and she came in, and Carrie looked at her, and that was Carrie's mother, or at least that's what they made her believe.
That's how Carrie saw it.
Yeah. And at that point, we all had to leave because things were getting a little heated between the two of them, and we moved on to the next room. And in the next room was one of my favorite movies. It was so good.
I actually didn't know that.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's one of those movies I can just watch over and over again.
Yeah,
actually,
I understand why.
And The Room after that as well. Like, so.
Okay, we're gonna have to talk about
Yeah,
that one.
Anyways, so the next room was based on 28 Days Later, which is not a zombie movie. I just need to say that out loud right now.
It's a virus outbreak movie.
Exactly. They get infected with rage, but they're always listed with zombie movies.
Right.
Anyways, you walk in and you are in, it looks like, a sidewalk of a destroyed city. Mm-hmm. And you see there's a phone booth on the side, like from London. It's a London phone booth. And there's like a woman that's apparently dead inside, and you have the actor like begging for help. You come in, he's like, help me, my girlfriend, like something's wrong. And he tasked one of us, I think it was you, to go grab the first aid kit.
Yeah, there was a
from
first
the
aid
dead
kit.
woman.
There was a dead woman inside the phone booth, and she had a first aid kit clutched in her hand. And Mike, I gotta say one thing. Yes, they did say, "Hey, take all the video you want, take all the photos you want," but the guy pointed and said, "Quick, somebody needs to give me the first aid kit. Like, bring me the first aid kit." And I turned around, and Mike, there were 4 or 5 people closer to the first aid kit than I was. Every one of them was watching this whole event through their phone.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
I just figured they didn't do a lot of immersive theater, and they figured they couldn't do anything.
That's why I didn't. I just turned around because I figured the person closest to the first aid kit would give the begging man whose girlfriend is bleeding out on the sidewalk that they would give him the first aid kit. And I turn around and there's 4 people standing there with their phones, up, and they're watching everything unfold through their phone. I was like, this is one of those moments where you just think, come on,
Yeah.
put your phone down. So I literally just like, okay, I'll do it. So I go get the first aid kit, and I rush back over, and I kneel by the girlfriend and hand him the first aid kit.
Yeah. And then he tries to help her out.
He asked Deb to get a blanket.
Mm-hmm. And we soon find out that she is beyond help. She has been infected. Mm-hmm. And while this is happening, when you look in front of you, there's a backlit sheet of plastic that's all torn to shreds, and you see shadows of these infected people, and you hear their groans, and it's like, oh crap, are we gonna have to go through that to get out? Nope. So after we realize his girlfriend has turned, she gets up and starts attacking some of us, and she's pushing us towards the way we came in.
She really went for you.
Yeah.
Really. Like she pinned you like backwards and like was like really almost hugging you. Mm-hmm. So
it was great.
It was a great image.
Yeah. And as she's doing this, all of a sudden, all of those shadows turn into people and come out of that plastic, and they're all being backlit and pushing us towards the exit. And
they exploded.
They
out
are
of that
not
plastic.
being shy either. It's not like a haunted house where it's like, oh, I'm coming to get you. You know, this was charging.
Yeah, including one of the creepiest little kids I have ever encountered.
Yeah.
And that the kid came after me, and I was like, I cannot believe I am running from a little kid in zombie makeup. I was just like...
Not zombie makeup.
Not zombie makeup. Virus outbreak makeup. So, yeah, it was really, truly a frightening moment when that plastic just like they all came through in unison, just bursting through that plastic.
That's such a memorable scene.
Oh, it was awesome. It was one of the, to me, that room is one of the highlights of the entire 2017 haunt season.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I totally agree. So then we get pushed into the next room, and we meet someone that used to be like us, except they kept him here, which sounds awfully familiar to some things that we've experienced in the past year or so. But he broke that fourth wall and was like, my name is, I forget what he said his name was. Like, my name is Dave. Like, I was on a tour here too, and they kept me. I'm not a part of this. I'm not an actor. Like, I need to get out of here. Somebody help me. And then again, I think you got tasked to reach through the door.
Nobody else was willing to. There was a door with holes in it, as if it had been part of a siege of some kind.
A siege?
Yeah.
That sounds squeaky.
With holes in it, as if like people had like axed through parts of it. And the guy said, like, look, they're keeping us here, and we have to reenact scenes from famous horror movies. And there was a person here earlier, and they attacked him, and they literally hacked off his arm. And it's like I see it, but are there any people? Like, is there anyone in that room? And so several of us looked through the doorway and went, no, there's no one in there. And he's like, can you reach the arm? I'm like, there's an arm on the floor. And he said, is it holding a key? I was like, yes. So I reach through and I pull this bloody fake arm, maybe fake. I think it was fake. It was very light. Pull it through, and he says, give it to me. And he takes the arm and uses the key that's still clutched in the dead hand to open the door, and we go into that room.
And we should probably say that this room is based on The Hills Have Eyes.
Specifically the remake.
Yeah, which is one of the best remakes of all time.
I have a little disagreement with you on that, but...
That's fine. I
will say this. It is freaking intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just...
it's not a crappy remake.
No, it's not a crappy remake. I agree with you. It's just not one of my favorite remakes.
That's okay. We've talked about how wrong you were multiple times.
You always tell me how wrong I am.
I was kidding. But
no,
yeah,
you're not.
I am.
But yes, it is a very, very intense movie. I will give you that.
So then we get into the room, and we're all just kind of like wondering what to do next, and he's checking doors, and all of a sudden one of the family comes busting through the door with an axe and starts swinging it. And I love the fact that it actually hits the ground. Like, it's those little things, man. Like, because, like, you know, whenever you go to a haunt or somewhere, most of the time it's like, oh, I'm going to make it look like I'm swinging really hard, and then I'm not going to hit the floor, so you don't hear the sound. But the fact that he was actually swinging and hitting the floor, like, even if it wasn't like powerful, it added so much to that part, because it's like, oh crap, he's swinging an axe, like he's really swinging it and he's trying to hit him. And it's like you forget for a second that you're in like a theater environment.
Oh, and also, but the reverse happened, which is, it's funny because I didn't register what you just said. I registered the next move, which is when the actor who was being attacked had a bat.
Yeah.
And he turns and he actually hits the other actor, and you hear the thud.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure somewhere there was padding. I'm sure it was a safe situation.
It's real, man.
But you heard the impact, and it was like, whoa, they're actually going after each other.
Yeah, that was going to be what I was going to say next too. But
Yeah.
that was perfect. Yeah, like like you never realize how much sound plays into an experience.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I'm not even talking background music. I'm talking like the things you take for granted, like things like that, like hitting someone with a bat.
Yeah. Really?
Bats are pretty neat thing to hit people with lately.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, please.
Hi, Mason.
Okay. And then from there
we escape. We were told to run through this doorway, and that doorway is actually an elevator.
A freight, yeah, like an old style freight elevator.
And as we're going down, you just see that family member just staring at you, and it's one of the creepiest things ever.
It was a great image.
Yep. So we go downstairs to the floor we entered on, and we think, hey, okay, cool, that's it. That's not it.
Because you meet the curator of the museum, and she doesn't open the door to the freight elevator. She keeps us in there, and she basically says, hey, like, you know, you're part of the artwork. Like, fear is what we're talking about here, and you are in fear. So, and she has a little bit of a spiel, and in the middle of that, Carrie shows up, which I don't know if everyone in the freight elevator could see Carrie when she first arrived. I was far enough over to the left in the elevator that I could see Carrie, and Carrie comes out and does something similar to what's known from the book and the movie as, like, she takes control of Mother, and she, using her telekinetic powers, moves the curator away from the door, and Carrie is telling us that it's time for us to get out. And the door starts to open, but there's a scream. And the scream...
It's from you.
Not the first one. The first scream comes from above. And everyone in the elevator looks up, and Brundlefly, because one of the movies that they are doing this re-release on Blu-ray is David Cronenberg's The Fly. Brundlefly is above us and literally plummets that would be like 2 stories, down into us, into the freight elevator with us. And he's stopped by the female voice outside the freight elevator, and he turns and he says, but I must feed. And Carrie is keeping the mother at bay, and we are told, now is the time to leave. You have to get out of here. So the final scare of Brundlefly, like literally on a wire coming down through the elevator shaft, was great for me. And yes, I did scream.
You physically jumped to the side and screamed.
Yeah, I did.
Because, you know, I don't know if you're going to put this part in the freight elevator, because before we were talking about this, I asked him to describe this part, because I had seen the fly above, because when I'm in a strange and unfamiliar place, all I do is look around. I try to get my bearings and everything. And what did you say to me?
You want me to repeat?
Yeah.
I said, sometimes it pays not to be present.
Right.
Because it means the scares can get you.
But was I present or was I not present? Because to me, watching you, knowing what was coming, was being the most present of all. So really? I don't need to be scared to be present. I just need to be aware. And watching you physically jump a foot to your side and scream was the highlight for me. And I'm not making fun of you. It was just like, because, I always tease you about getting scared, and it's like and you do like the
Oh my God, you just physically imitated me perfectly.
I know. I've been through enough haunts with you. But you do that, and it's just like a shoulder shrug. But to see you actually jump, like your whole body lift up into the air and move, like that's saying something.
It did. It got me. I was totally not expecting it. And to hear him scream, and then I look up and literally this character is flying down a 2-story elevator shaft and lands among our group and says that he has to feed. It was a great scare. And yeah, I screamed and jumped, and it got me. And then to save ourselves, we have to rush out of the building. And then we went and shopped for Blu-rays. This was such a nice pop-up event. Man, kudos to 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment, The Great Company, and Delusion. You guys nailed this. You knocked it out of the park. This was so much fun.
Like, this was perfection.
Yes.
And like we always talk about how to get more people involved and interested in immersive theater. I think this is a great first step.
Right.
Because people are going to go to this thinking it's like, oh, it's just a haunted house. But, oh, wait a minute, I can talk to the actors. Oh, wait a minute, I can do this. And I think they're going to explore more of that.
I hope so. And yeah, and the buzzword, on the corporate side of things, the buzzword is experiential marketing. Mm-hmm. So that's, this is falling into that category. And the It pop-up was like that.
Do you know what's the best part of experiential marketing is?
Which is?
It's free for us because it's marketing.
This was an event that was free. All you had to do was sign up online for a time slot.
Bring it, Hollywood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Please.
This was so much fun. Now, one thing I did find, Mike, I found on YouTube a basic walkthrough of this from Inside the Magic, which they cover theme park stuff and theme park related things. They actually have a video walkthrough that is pretty good. They don't catch the scare from above in the freight elevator that we just referenced, the one that got me so good, but it gives you a flavor of what this was. And I think we should put that link in the show notes.
Sure.
And thank you to Inside the Magic for putting that up on YouTube. I thought they captured the scenes really, really well. And you will see a fairly good representation of that moment of people coming through the backlit plastic in 28 Days Later, which was such an effective moment.
Yeah.
This was, like I said, worth coming back from Vegas for one freaking night to go to this with you guys.
And also, with Delusion being involved, this makes me so much more excited and hungry for them to return next year.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Because this is just a teaser of what they can do.
Yeah. This was so much fun. So much fun.
So, Russell, you mentioned that the art prints that came with these movies.
Yes.
And you mentioned that the covers were redone. The covers were redone in a kind of Dia de los Muertos style.
It does have that vibe to it. Several of them do have that vibe to it.
And speaking of Dia de los Muertos, you went to Fallen Saints.
Nice segue. Yes, which unfortunately by the time this podcast comes out, the run will have ended unless they do an extension. But Fallen Saints, Dias de los Muertos, I never pronounce that correctly. Dias de los Muertos. Something like that. Close enough?
Bueno.
Hopefully. Thanks. We talked about Force of Nature Productions, and they did a teaser of this show that lasted, I think 12 to 15 minutes at Midsummer Scream earlier this year. This was the mythology of La Llorona presented through a play which explores the community behind the woman of that mythology. Why did she choose to make the choices that she did? Why did she choose to commit murder? So that's the mythology that they're playing with, but they do it through Day of the Dead colors and costuming and makeup and music, and it's a very tragic tale, but it's presented in all of these vibrant reds and greens and blues, and everything that you see is so colorful and beautiful. It was a really nice production, very much in line with what they did at Midsummer Scream. I think the tone was about the same. This just is one of those things where it's such a nice production, and it was such a different offering during the haunt season. That's the cool thing about some of the theater stuff that we're going to be talking about for the next few minutes.
We or you?
Me. So, because I am more of a theater nerd than you. Congratulations again on Force of Nature Productions. Keep an eye out for future work by these guys. And by the way, they seem to be making this a Halloween tradition. They also do a Christmas show. Not scary or creepy Christmas show, but they always do a Christmas show, it seems. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they bring up this year for the holidays. I went and saw their holiday show last year, and it was a ton of fun.
So, because I didn't get to go to this show, what was it, a continuation of what happened at Midsummer Scream, or was it some of the same? Or?
It was a continuation. You set up the mythology that this woman is sort of trapped between life and death, and she doesn't understand what exactly unfolded in her life. She has forgotten. And on the Day of the Dead, all the spirits come back and refresh her memory as to how she affected each of them.
Oh, okay.
And there is so much death and destruction in this story. It is unbelievable. There's a lot of murder going on in this thing. It was really highly enjoyable, very beautiful to watch. So, more power to Force of Nature Productions. I would keep an eye on things that they have coming up in the future. I did see their Christmas show last year. I would recommend checking that out, whatever they offer for the Christmas holidays this year. And I've seen a couple of productions from Force of Nature now, and they're just a fun company. They really are. If you want more information, look up fonproductions.com on the web. For Facebook, FONProds. On Instagram, FONProds, and on Twitter, FONProds.
That's kind of like if I ever started like a cattle prodding company, it could be like Fawn Prods, because my last name, Fawn Prods.
You would name it Fun Prods, F-U-N.
F-U. Anyways.
Wow. So yeah, and I've done some other theater, and one thing I want to point to is The Final Girl, from School of Night, which is last year I talked about a production called Punch and Judy at the Fringe Festival. This is the same production company that did that. And it's written and directed by Christopher Johnson, produced by Jen Albert. The company is called The School of Night. This runs through November 4th, so there's still a chance to see this. And I'm going to read their description about The Final Girl. The School of Night is proud to present this postmodern potpourri of slasher horror, revenge tragedy, martial arts action, grand guignol, superhero origin, gladiatorial combat, vigilante crime, and sadomasochistic kink, calculated to titillate, tantalize, tense, and terrify. The play contains violence, gore, sexuality, sexual violence, drug use, adult language, gunshots, and 80s nostalgia. No one under 17 will be admitted.
That sounds amazing.
They deliver all of the above. Not particularly a lot of blood, but there's a lot of violence, a lot of sexual content. This is definitely an adult-oriented show. What they do is the first half of this show is sort of a recreation of an 80s slasher movie live on stage. They have a woman doing a wonderful sort of riff on the Loomis character from the Halloween series. You have cliche characters, the kids that die because they go to a cabin, that kind of thing. There's a lot of cliches that you will recognize, but they're all just riffed on, really fondly and affectionately. And then halfway through the show, they offer a huge plot twist, which I can't reveal, which leads this whole story into completely different territory. Now, one thing about this, you're talking about realistic violence. This has a great deal of violence in it. And actually, the producer is also the fight choreographer, Jen Albert. Punch and Judy, which I mentioned from last year, it was a very violent show because that's the nature of Punch and Judy shows. This is a very stylized type of fight choreography. They don't go for realistic violence necessarily, but they do go for extremely athletic, gymnastic style violence. There's a lot of throwing, there's a lot of jumping, it's very, very physically active. This cast throws themselves into all of the fight sequences. This was a lot of fun. And first of all, it's fun to sort of see someone riffing on the 80s slasher genre live on stage. And Mike, they actually do a credit sequence.
No way.
from a slasher picture, and it references very specifically a 1980s slasher movie credit sequence. And they sort of pay homage to it live on stage. And they have actors using props actually acting out the credit sequence animation from one of the 80s slasher movies. And if you know the slasher movie, you'll recognize it as it's happening. So, and at the end of this show, there's a credit sequence. This is all loving, tongue-in-cheek, but it's also a really nice riff on what's going on. And like I said, the second half of the show, they take it into really unfamiliar territory, and they do some really wacky twists with the plot and the characters that you think you know so well. I really had a blast at this. This is not going for high art. This is going for fun, energetic, let's be goofy, like let's really show our love of 80s slasher movies live on stage. And I think they succeed very well with that. Like I said, their run for The Final Girl is it's in Hollywood. It ends November 4th. If you want more information, look up their website at schoolofnight.org. On Facebook, School of Night Theater, and that's theater with R-E at the end. On Instagram, School of Night. And on Twitter, School of Night LA. Okay, Mike, and I've got one other play.
I thought you had two more.
So, well, one of them is also kind of a haunt. But,
okay.
Okay, so play-wise, Collaborative Artist Ensemble, which is in North Hollywood. Some people local to this podcast may know the Avery Schreiber Playhouse, that area. The Collaborative Artist Ensemble is producing Afterlife, A Ghost Story by Steve Yockey and directed by Steve Gerard. Okay, this runs through November 12th. Now, I'm going to read the description of this from their website, the kind of a plot summary, and I'm going to comment on it afterwards. There's a reason I want to read their description. The story involves an impending storm forces troubled couple Connor and Danielle to return to their beachfront home for the first time since they lost their son. While they reluctantly attempt to secure their house and also try to pick up the pieces of their fractured lives, they are welcomed by dead fishes littering the shore, enormous black birds that appear to be waiting and watching, and a familiar voice whispering from the waves calling to them. The storm hits sooner than expected, and they are thrust into another dimension, where they must confront their tragedy and learn how to cope with the pain of remembering before they are swept away forever. Okay, this piece is kinda out there, but I wanted to draw some attention to it because the cast is so strong. And it's a really good production. The first half of the show is exactly as that description, would indicate. There's a storm coming, there's a beachfront house that needs to be, storm windows put up, etc. And this couple who lost their son to drowning in the ocean returns to this site. So obviously there's tension. There's tension between the two of them. They can't quite agree on what to do, and the tension builds, and then the storm hits. So the second half of the show is a truly bizarre twist. And in that description, when it says they are thrust into another dimension, that's literal. And you actually enter another dimension where the child is present, where the wife confronts characters that may or may not represent Mother Nature, the storm itself, the ocean. And she wrestles literally with her conscience, coming to terms with, you can't control nature. And is she to blame for the death of their son, or is nature to blame for the death of their son? This is odd territory. As I was watching it, I was at one point thinking of, Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, or Waiting for Godot, depending on how you think about it.
That's what I was just thinking about, too.
Yeah, I'm sure you were. Think of early Edward Albee work. Like, this is heady theater stuff. The cast tackles it head on. They do a great job, but it is very surreal feeling. It just like veers from realism into a surrealistic, another dimension, sort of weird Twilight Zone aspect, which I found appealing and I thought well performed, but I got to admit, this is not for everyone. This is hard to get into sometimes. It's like the most philosophical Twilight Zone episodes, which sometimes are not the favorite episodes of fans. I enjoyed it. If you want a really trippy, heady experience, I would recommend checking Afterlife, A Ghost Story out.
Cool.
Their website is collaborativeartistensemble.com, or on Facebook, Collaborative Artists Ensemble, Instagram, Collaborative Artists Ensemble. And they have some beautiful pictures on their Instagram account from this production. Okay, I think the next thing you're talking about, or when you made reference to two plays, I think you were referring to the other thing that I went to.
Yes.
Now, we know several people who had mentioned Caden Project Walls Grow Thin to us by Rogue Artist Ensemble, which is presented in association with East West Players. Now, this runs through November 5th. Okay, this is a very, very unique event, Mike. And again, I'm going to read a description from the website. You receive a letter from a woman who is haunted by a mysterious event in her past, and she needs your help. When you arrive at her family's warehouse, you ascend to the 5th and 6th floors in a creaky old elevator, followed by a voice that calls out through the shadows, a voice that may not be human. They describe this as a multi-sensory, immersive, site-specific experience refracting ancient Japanese ghost stories through a modern, multicultural lens, revealing the noise of our histories and the silences that haunt us. So this is a play, sort of. It's also a haunt, sort of. It's an immersive theater piece. You go to this warehouse, and very quickly you kind of learn that the employers, members of this family, have been hearing noises, and there is this woman who has disappeared, but they think she's around. They catch glimpses of her. They hear her. So your duty is you go explore. And this is presented in a style reminiscent of Japanese theater where there's mask work, there's puppetry, there's very stylized acting performances, and then in some rooms it's completely a natural performance, and you get pulled into certain tasks and to certain rooms yourself. You break off from your group every now and then to experience shorter, smaller scenes. It is definitely an immersive piece. It has you wandering through this factory, which is haunted by various things. So I won't say, Mike, that this didn't hit me on a heavy emotional level because of the style of, there's so much puppetry and mask work that I found that and this is a personal thing with me, I find that style of theater a bit distancing. So it wasn't as easy for me to jump in and like emotionally invest, but it's beautiful and it's very stylized, and I highly recommend it. Just go in knowing that you're going to be seeing mask work and puppetry and all of that, which they don't really describe, but I'm not giving anything that I think is a spoiler either. And then when you get toward the end, the story takes a really wacky, wild turn, and it gets really freaky and bizarre. And there are really long stretches that feel like a haunt, where you're going through, and one of my favorite things, I don't want to be too specific, but you're left alone and you're sort of told, yeah, you're on your own and I'll meet you later.
Oh, that's always fun.
And along the way, and you're given an instruction, along the way, keep an eye out for this. And so you have to make the decision of what are you supposed to be keeping an eye out for, and is it something you will need later? Or is it something you leave alone? And if you're paying attention during the show, there are clues throughout the show that tell you what you need. And so by the end, as your group is going through, you come together and you gather what you need to perform, let's just say a certain thing, a ritual, a ceremony that needs to be performed at the end of the show. But you're part of that. They pull you in and you become part of the solution for the problem that is haunting this building. That's really nice. Along the way, there are some absolutely stunning visuals. There is some use of blacklight. There is use of puppetry in ways that really will take you by surprise. And yeah, they got me once. I don't think I jumped, but I did scream because you're in a dark room and something suddenly appears right next to you. That moment happened for me. And I did scream like a little girl, just like absolutely like, damn it, you got me. And it was fun. It was absolutely very fun, and I recommend this. The visuals are so striking in so many places that's the thing that carried me. I got to admit, the story didn't pull me in as much as I would love to have had happen, but the visuals and the interactions did pull me in.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I definitely recommend this. And like I said, they do run through November 5th. Rogue Artist Ensemble, you can find them on the web at rogueartists.org. If you go to that site, I think you have to click on a tab that says Our Work, and that will lead you to a link for Caden Project Walls Grow Thin. Also, you can find them on Facebook at Rogue Artists and check them on Instagram at Rogue_Artist, and Twitter is Rogue_Artists.
So then we went to a familiar place. We went to this place last year as well, Coffin Creek, located in Corona. And just off the bat, like comparing it to last year, this year was much better.
It's interesting. This is something that has grown so much in 1 year.
Yeah, because they have an adjacent Renaissance fair on the property. And the people that I guess own the Renaissance fair,
I
think
sure.
they do. I don't know. But they did a haunt and a haunted hayride and also had an escape room. And they combined forces. So you can buy one ticket and go to all 5 of these things, except the escape room. The escape room is an additional cost on top of the ticket. So for one ticket, you get 5 haunts, and that's the Haunted Asylum, and that's at Coffin Creek, the Catacombs of Guasti Cemetery, also at Coffin Creek, the Prado Witch Trail at Coffin Creek, and Outside in the Woods, which is awesome.
Yes.
And then up at the Renaissance Fair part of it, it's the Shady Hollow Hayride, and it's an actual hayride, and the Dark Realm.
Very lengthy hayride, by the way.
Yeah, definitely. And that actually, now that you're mentioning that, one thing I want to compliment them on before we even start talking to them is the length of their haunts. Their mazes are so long. Mm-hmm. And, because like you get kind of used to going to, say like a Universal or anyone else that has like multi haunts on the property, and there may be like a few minutes like walk through.
Right.
And this, what was it, like 10 to 15 on each of these?
It feels like that.
Yeah. Now, like I said, Coffin Creek's located in Corona, and it is somewhat of a drive, especially if you're living in LA. Well, especially for you, Russell, because you live in the Valley. But it's worth it. Like, this is such a great night. The lines are not crazy. You won't be, at least the night we went on a Sunday. The lines were great. I can't say on a Saturday or a Friday night if they would be the same. There'd definitely probably be more people there. But they're all manageable.
Yeah, definitely.
So we got there, and the first haunt we went to was the Catacombs Maze, and that's the Catacombs of Guasti Cemetery. And a few things have changed since last year. They made some definite tweaks, but overall, like, this was awesome. Like, I love this one so much. Like, the things that they do, and you walk through and you believe you're in a dungeon, and you believe that there's these haunted monks and like just kind of chasing you around and tormenting your soul.
The production design in this one is my favorite of all 5 attractions.
Mine too.
It is, at times you feel like you're underground when you aren't. At times you feel like you are exploring catacombs of a castle, which it's an achievement. It really is. It's such a beautiful maze, and they put a lot of work into the look and the feel and the vibe of it. And another thing is, it's one of those mazes where you don't see every jump scare coming, because a lot of them are hidden very well in the architecture of the building, which is really nice. And at times you have characters above you, and at times you have characters coming at you from different angles than you would normally expect. And sometimes the rooms open up into bigger rooms than you think, and there's scares hidden where you wouldn't expect them in larger rooms.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a good layout.
And the thing about this one, too, one of the changes they had from last year is you may have physical contact happen to you at one point because you are being judged for your sins. And if you're guilty, you may receive a punishment from someone you know.
And we both received punishment.
Sure did. Surprising punishment. But I mean, this one is just so great because it's so dark and creepy inside, and the use of the lights, the lighting in there is just perfect. And exactly what you said, the way they have it set up, you can have a scare happen where you do not expect it. And that happened a couple times for me. Mm-hmm. And it definitely happened to you because I heard you and saw you. And yeah, I mean, this was a great start to the night.
From there, we went to the haunted asylum of Coffin Creek.
Yes, and luckily we were not returning patients like last year, because last year we did scare for a bit in this maze.
Which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, but this year we went just to visit our old friends again. And same thing, I mentioned the sounds when we were talking about Horror Rewind. Mm-hmm. And the same thing, because you're in a mental institution and you hear voices, and the voices get crazier and creepier the further you get into the maze. And I thought that was a really nice touch because that wasn't there last year.
Something else I'd like to point out about this, when you are going through a maze, traditionally one of the things that plays on your mind is the layout and shape of room to room to room. And one of the things that I really like about the haunted asylum is, I'm sure you noticed, Mike, I don't know if you registered with you as you were going through it or if you've thought about it. Do you realize how many rooms in this maze are not rectangle or square?
No, I didn't even think about that.
So many of these rooms are actually built where the walls are angled in weird ways. Because, we live our lives in rectangles and squares, architecturally speaking. Mm-hmm. I mean, so if you enter a space that is round, some people will find it comforting. If you enter a space that is disjointed and has weird angles, it plays with your brain. And if you think about the way we walked through this maze, there are hallways that get narrower or wider. You'll walk into a room at an angle, and the wall across from you is actually not across from you. It's kind of an angled wall. How many times did that happen if you think back into this maze?
Probably almost every room.
Almost every room, especially as you get into it more, it's like they get smaller and they get weirder angles. And I love that about this maze, because that's part of what makes it feel crazy. And then suddenly you walk outside and you're on a ramp and you don't know where the ramp is leading you. I mean, that's another nice moment. Mm-hmm. And, you have an actor playing with the patrons on the ramp and threatening them. And so there's much about this maze to praise in the way it's laid out and constructed. I think that's why this maze feels so weird, is because of the shape of the rooms.
Well, and another thing I said, we were basically checked in last year mm-hmm. as patients. Some of the patients seem to remember us and the doctors and stuff.
Yes.
Which was a nice added touch. There were times when they would actually ask for Russell and I by name. Yeah. Walking through, and it was creepy as hell. Yeah. Because you don't expect it.
Especially when it comes from behind a wall. Yeah. That was weird. But very effective, absolutely.
And this one had a couple of kids.
Yes.
Checked in, which so cute. Yeah. But it's so creepy at the same time. And I don't know.
Sorry, I'm chuckling because do you remember what the little girl did with her doll?
Yes. Go for it.
No, go ahead, man.
You brought it up.
No, it's just at one point there was a little girl near the end of the maze, and she's playing with a doll, and she just rips the head off the doll. Just like, oh, I'm playing with my dolly, rip.
And when he says little girl, he means it. She was probably 6 or 7?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, it was a creepy image, that's for sure.
And then after that, we went to the Prado Witch Trail, which is outside in the middle of the woods. And this was one of the best experiences just because it's outside in the woods. And,
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, Southern California doesn't have woods that you can actually, you can go hiking and stuff, but most of these places don't allow you to go at night.
Right. And this is sort of a bog is extreme, but it's a moist area because it's lower on the property area.
It's moist and it's lower.
Yeah.
Sorry.
How old are you? So we walk down a hill to get to this thing, and it's kind of at the bottom, the lowest point of the property. And at times they've put boards down to help traction of your shoes, but it's like the ground is a little mucky and a little muddy. And if you're going to Coffin Creek, be aware that you might want to wear shoes that will get a little bit dirty if you go through the Prado Witch Trail. It's cooler down there also, which adds to the creepy feeling because it doesn't feel like the rest of the property. You're actually you can feel the temperature change as you approach this thing.
It's like an invisible line. It's literally, it doesn't just transcend into that.
Yeah.
It's like, here is hot, here is not.
Yeah, it's a very, very creepy atmosphere. So, and they do give you a somewhat dim flashlight to find your way through the woods. There is a storyline. You are looking for a lost child, and along the way you do find evidence of the child.
Which just adds to the creepiness because this could be real.
The one sequence in particular where you find where the child had been staying, that was a sequence that really got to me.
Yeah, that's when you stumble upon that, it kind of hits home like, oh.
Yeah, something violent may have happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just seeing everything around there, and yeah.
It looks like it looks like you've stumbled upon a crime scene is the feeling that you get, and and since you were told that it was a child that was missing, that makes it all the more disturbing.
And one of the coolest parts about this maze is at the end, because you see this technique used inside, but you don't really see it used outside. Mm-hmm. And it added a lot to that exit.
Through the use of lighting and fog, they create a very, very creepy ending for the witch trail. Mm-hmm. And let's just say you may find the child. Or the child may find you.
Oh, boy.
So... And then we went up the hill to the Ren Fair area.
And you don't have to drive. It's a short walk, and it's in the dark, and it's awesome. I mean, there's some guided, like path lights and everything, but maybe a 5-minute walk, if that.
Yeah, it was less than half a mile, probably.
It was probably a quarter of a mile.
Yeah.
Which is nothing.
Yeah, and it was dark, and we were outdoors, and there were pale lights along the way to make sure we didn't get lost, and
you stumble upon a Renaissance village.
Yes, exactly.
And
with funnel cake.
Yeah, the funnel cake was good. And they had only one traditional haunt, and that was the Dark Realm. And this, if you're into Dungeons and Dragons, if you're into Lord of the Rings, if you're into Ren Fairs, you will lose your mind over this one. I'm not the hugest fan of that stuff, but even I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Because I guess this place is done by LARPers, and so they have all that experience of talking about dragons and orcs and stuff like that. So it's really believable when you go into this haunt, because it's like a castle, and you have a knight that leads you through some of it, and is there to protect you, and he has a sword, and just like the people that come and the creatures that appear, it's perfect. It's just so well done,
and very different in feeling than anything else I've done this entire haunt season.
Yeah, because of course there's monsters, there's always monsters, but it's not the traditional bloody monsters. It's it's exactly if you watch Lord of the Rings and you have those monsters come after you.
Yeah, it's a very different style. It's led for the most part, and they tell you a story, and they protect you or they tell you to save yourself, and it's all part of a story. And the production design here is really, really nice.
Yeah, this one was great. And then we ended the night by going on the Haunted Hayride, and I like that they used bales of hay instead of the LA hayride where it's just hay strewn about so it can get inside your clothes and stuff.
Yeah.
This was a bit more comfortable because also you're not sitting flat. You could sit above and like you're kind of like you're on a chair. Yeah. So I like that part of it. But the issue I had with this one is that there was really not a lot of lighting. So you couldn't see the structures that people were coming from. You could barely see the people. So if there was something happening, you hear a scream, but you really see darkness. And it didn't add to the creepiness factor for me.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree that in certain areas I felt like there could have been more lighting. They did in certain areas. I'm thinking like near the very end where two characters come out of a building. You know, they obviously lit the front of that structure for that reason. It's still under the moonlight, stars, whatever. It still has a creepy vibe, but I do see what you're talking about. There were a lot of people in the dark talking to us as we drove by on the hayride.
Yeah, and it was just
and growling at us.
Yeah, and just screaming.
Yeah. So could have been a little bit more effective. There were a couple of things that did play effectively. But I agree with you in the fact that it could have been lit a little bit better.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, this is fun to have when you have 4 other haunts to go on. It's definitely a nice thing to do and break up the monotony of going through a haunted house after haunted house after haunted house. But it's definitely not the destination to go.
It's not the strongest of the 5 attractions.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But did enjoy it, I got to admit. Mm-hmm. So.
I know Coffin Creek is a drive for most people, but it's so worth it to check out. And you can find them on the web at coffincreek.com. On Facebook, search for Coffin Creek. On Instagram and Twitter, Coffin Creek.
And they are open Halloween night. Speaking of haunts that we did last year, Mike, I was on my way to something else to meet with friends last night. And I managed to stop by the Backwoods Maze in Burbank, California.
Awesome.
This is a really well-known home haunt. They run on donations, and they are awesome. And again, really strong entry, and they are open Halloween night, and it's the line can get a little long, but they pack so much into a home haunt. It's an actual maze. The production design is out of this world. Huge, oversized props, robots. There's a couple of live actors in the maze that will give you a couple of scares. I went through with one other person who was there, and we both got a couple of really good jump scares going through this. And again, the production design is just out of this world. It's such a fun. You turn a corner in this thing and you're like, how did they even build this or get this in this backyard? Huge oversized props. There was some more laboratory feeling stuff this year, Mike. I think they did more with video displays. I noticed one of the actors was sort of changing some controls on something right before we were about to walk through a room.
Oh.
So, yeah, it was kind of like, why are you messing with that screen? Like, what are you controlling over there? So, yeah, that was a nice touch. And it's a really well-known, good quality home haunt. Very popular in the Burbank area, and recommend if you can make it out there, support them, throw them some little cash after you go through. And I will say this. It's fairly family friendly, but the group before me, Mike, had kids ranging from about, I think, 6 to 10, and it was a little much for them. It was a little too intense.
And apparently for 20-year-olds as well.
Before we started recording, I told Mike the story that I was waiting in line with a couple of people and 2 guys, and we were just comparing what we had been doing during the haunt season. And we're about to go in, and one of the guys turns around and is like, "Oh, I'm not going to go through." And even the guy who runs the Backwoods Maze, the guy who was running the line, we're like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, and he walks away and he looks at the 2 of us, and I didn't know the guy. He was a friend of the person who I got grouped with. And he's like, "How old is that guy?" And like, it was like 22. Like, and he's not. What? Go tell him that it's not that scary. I was like, no, we're fine. And so we went through, and so I went with as a 2-person group with this other guy who I didn't know, and we had some good jump scares, and it was fun, and we had a blast. So yeah, the Backwoods Maze is always dependable. So if you want more information on them, you can find them. They do have a Facebook page at the Backwoods Maze, and they do have an Instagram at the Backwoods Maze, and their Instagram account has some really, really nice images on it.
Well, Russell, it's time again.
Time for
The Lust Experience. Hello, The Lust Experience.
yeah.
Fine, whatever. The
Well,
Lust
well,
Experience.
what were
Dun
you-
dun dun.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were expecting the sound effect.
Well, yeah, that's what happens, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you would expect that because that's kind of like predictable behavior from me, right?
It's part of the podcast.
Yeah, but I don't always have to behave predictably. You certainly don't.
I don't know what you're talking about. Is this because I ordered chicken and not steak
No.
the other day? Whatever.
So
Anyways,
anyway, let's talk about the lust experience.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Editor. It's all in your power.
I can be
whatever.
unpredictable too.
No, you can't. So since the last podcast, right after we recorded that, I got a phone call from someone named Mary. And it seems that Mary was part of the 91 pencil pushers that Brian Bishop made a decision about, and that we all assume are being killed by Mason. So she called me and she started telling me that I didn't know her, but she really knew me because she was one of the people that was inputting my data. So she was definitely working at OSDM, and she would tell me that she listened to the podcast and she'd read the forums, and all of that information she would put into the computer. So she probably knows you too then, Russell.
Probably to some degree.
But she said that she's running and isn't sure where to go, and that they were up to 11 or 12 at that point. I took that to mean that that's how many people Mason had killed so far. And she said she'd never been to Paris, and she had a daughter named Samantha that she hasn't spoken to in 8 years. And that kind of struck me as odd, and we're not finding out any clues. Like, we can't figure anything out because
No.
like that was something like the community jumped in. It's like, okay, do we know anyone named Samantha? What happened in Paris and things? And we haven't really seen anything yet. So I don't know if that will lead to somewhere down the road. But the weird thing is she ended the call by saying, "I'm sorry." And it was one of those, I'm sorry. And then the phone went dead. And there was a weird sound like right before the phone went dead. So I don't like, it was kind of like almost like an industrial type sound. But yeah, so that was an odd and random call to get.
Okay.
But what's even odder is while I was on this phone call with her, I was getting a call waiting. And, because whenever you get a no caller ID call, it's like, oh my God, something's about to happen. When you're on a no caller ID call and then you get call waiting on a no caller ID call, it's like, holy crap, what do I do? Like, because obviously I'm hearing about something happening, but obviously then there's something else that wants to happen. It's like, what do you do? So I finished Mary's call, and luckily I got a call back, and Mason was calling on the other end. And the conversation went into me suggesting that he might need some help based on the 91 meetings at that point, or after that call, probably 80 or 79 meetings at that point. And he actually agreed, and he asked me to send him a resume. And so because he said that despite people thinking he's a psychopath, he likes to do things professionally. He likes to have the I's dotted and the T's crossed, and he likes to do things properly. So that night, I sent him a resume. Okay. And I put some of the skills that many people don't know about, like from growing up in New England, people go hunting, they go fishing. And I mentioned some of those skills, like gutting fish and not being squeamish when that happens and being able to rip guts out of living things and having no emotion about it. Things like that.
Yeah.
Things that could help a situation like this and what he's doing. So I sent him the resume, and he actually posted the resume in Slack that night and was saying that he might have a new friend, and everyone was theorizing about who it was. And almost instantly people were like, it's Mike, because I did put some real life job stuff on there. Like, because in, doing buying, you have to negotiate. So I figured a position like this might take some negotiation. So I figured that's a skill. And I didn't confirm nor deny that it was mine, because let's face it, I want this job. I don't want other people applying for it. So I didn't say that. I didn't say it was mine. But it was, and I put that on the forums. So after he posted the resume and said I might be his friend, and that got me excited because that means the resume was looking good. So fast forward, maybe a week or so later, I got a call from someone, and like this is so vague, and I apologize, because I was actually at a vendor meeting. I was at a cardboard box factory, like legit, like learning how cardboard boxes getting made, and it's fascinating.
I'm sure it is.
It's
actually
nothing like that Simpsons episode. But it was just at the start of the meeting, so I was able to run out and take it. But after the call happened, I got about 5 more calls, like no caller ID calls, but I was in the middle of a factory. I couldn't take it.
Yeah, sometimes you have to have a job.
Yeah, so I was bummed because I don't know. So I got a call, and the person it was a man, and he asked if I knew who it was, and I was like, no, because it didn't sound like Mason, it didn't sound like Noah, but it sounded like he said, I'm Allison's dad. Now, Allison is very close to Addison, but you can tell the difference between Addison and Allison, and it sounded like Allison. Because if it was Addison's dad, if it was Tom Barrows, like, why not just say it's Tom or it's Tom Barrow? You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know if that was actually lust related or if it was like a random game jack thing, but either way, I got that call, and there are certain points he would say something, but I wasn't able to hear because I was outside along a busy street, and so cars kept going by. And so I would say things like "what" or "okay," like that, and he accused me of being a smartass, which I am, but not in this context, because I really couldn't hear, and I wanted to keep the conversation going. So I was like, okay, like something like that. And he asked me if he could call me a friend based on all the crap that we've been through together. And I said, sure. And he proceeded to tell me that my other friends, and he said friends weird. He was like, your other friends have no idea what's even going on, even though they think they do. It was kind of like that same message that we've heard like throughout the last year. Like, you think you know, but you don't, like that kind of thing. It was definitely came off as a warning, but not really a threat, although it could have been a threat. And then he said he'd be in touch and hung up. So it was kind of weird because...
And you haven't heard back from this person?
No, not yet. So I don't know. Like, I don't know if... And maybe the calls all happened because I posted in Slack saying I got a call. I think it said Allison, but, and maybe they were calling back to clarify, or maybe they were calling back to say I messed up, or, I don't know. It's like, I have no idea. But apparently we still don't know what's coming. Yeah. And then last weekend, I got a call from Mason again.
Okay.
And he knows that I want the job, if there is a job to give. I sent my resume, and he said he was very impressed with it. And he said he was going to give me a shot and to show him what I got. Now, when he said, show me what you got, he hung up. So there's no direction. No, I want you to do this. I want you to do that. And so that happened. And then...
Okay, so there was no instruction whether... All right, you're supposed to show him what you got, but, like, was it So there was nothing about being public or private or anything like that?
Nope.
Okay, this helps me.
So I did what I needed to do
Yeah.
to impress some people.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Look, just because you slipped and fell and got caught and you cut yourself shaving,
Yeah,
like,
right.
and I recorded it, doesn't mean anything.
No, there was a video. I don't know how much I really want to get into this, man. You know the funny thing, Mike?
What?
I consider you a good friend.
Thanks.
I think people who listen to this podcast probably know that.
You too.
Thank you. We have a history, you and I. I think people who know us well, you know, our friends know that you have surprised me a couple of times. You know how to scare me. How many times have I driven up to an event and you've been waiting somewhere and you scare me while I'm still in my car?
Never happens.
Yeah, right. Well, I think the last time was about 2 weeks ago that you did that.
Maybe.
Some people know that a couple years ago, in front of your birthday, I might have gone to another city, gained access to a hotel room, and set up an entire escape room for you by surprising you that way.
Yeah.
So you and I surprise each other sometimes.
Yeah.
So I've also, like some people know this, I shot a promo for the Evil Twin Studios Haunt a couple years ago, and I asked you if you'd be willing to do something for me, and you said yes, and you wound up in a straitjacket in the promo video for a haunt.
Yes.
Okay. So I trust you, man. I think you trust me.
Thanks. That's your first mistake.
So some people don't understand how I could end up in a vulnerable position.
It's because when you never see it coming.
Yeah. So there was a video I didn't expect you to. I thought you were going to shoot some stills or something to make a point, and I didn't ask you for details because I trust you. You took me by surprise, man.
I'm full of surprises.
And you know what? I have a great deal of respect for you for that.
Thank you.
It just, some people didn't understand how I might have wound up in that position. But yeah, it happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, on my resume, I said I know how to stalk prey and bait traps. Just saying.
Which you did. Congratulations, man.
Thanks.
All right. So you put a video up of sort of surprising me and scaring the crap out of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you slipped and fell, hit yourself on a doorknob, cut yourself shaving.
Okay.
Anyways, like I said, I took that as an opportunity to impress some people. And I believe it did. And I got a call from Mason to choose an active member of the community and ask him questions. And I chose Brad. We went for coffee, and I asked him a few questions about things he's learned over the past couple months and how he would change himself. I asked him those questions, and he answered, and that's that.
Do you feel you satisfied the request of Mason?
I definitely
Okay.
feel that way. And I think Brad's a better person for it now.
Okay. And there was some fallout from that meeting with Brad.
There's fallout from everything.
Wow.
It's true. You're never going to have everyone agree with you. You're never going to have everyone disagree with you. It's mixed. It's always going to be mixed. The reactions are always going to be mixed.
Yeah.
People identify with certain people.
Organizations.
Yeah. And sometimes they don't. People are questioning Brad's loyalty now. And, that's something that he has to deal with now, because I did not see any sort of unloyalty to a certain organization. He's just following his path.
Which is what we should all do.
But, earlier you were talking about videos. And why don't you Explain yourself, Mr. Fancy Suit Video Guy.
I'll explain myself as well as you explained yourself. How's that?
Fair enough.
A couple of days after that video of you surprising me, I received a piece of information. I was told that it was a piece of information that I should put out for public consumption. And I did. I periscoped a video that said that I cannot tell how, but I have it on very good authority that the Briarberg group is a lie and does not actually exist. I can't reveal how that was given to me.
That's fine. Don't freak out about it.
It's just like, it's like there's...
We all answer to somebody, Russell.
Yeah, and I'm answering to somebody.
I know you're included in all.
Okay, I'm answering to myself right now. And here's the weird thing, Mike. You know, the reaction to that video, I did it very quickly and sort of in the heat of the moment. And I was kind of surprised that everyone interpreted it as me being angry. And what was I angry at? Like, was I angry at the fact that I was told this information? Was I angry at the person who gave me the information? And nobody seemed to hit on what I thought was the most obvious answer to that. Do you have any guess as to why I might be angry?
No. Why don't you tell me?
Really?
Yeah.
Briarberg is an organization which I think might be messing with and manipulating a good friend of mine.
I don't know about that.
I don't know either, but the idea that somebody might be doing that made me angry. Nobody seemed to connect it.
But here's the thing. We don't even know what Briarberg is.
Exactly.
So
I know that.
But here's the thing. If it's a lie, who cares? They're just called something else. They're just another organization. And
there's so many, for lack of a better word, corporate levels going on to this thing that nobody knows who answers to anybody.
Right.
But I can't reveal my source. But I was surprised when everyone said, "Oh my God, Russell is so angry." And here's the thing: is like, Mike, you've seen me angry.
Mm-hmm.
You probably on the anger scale. Okay, if we give Russell like an anger scale of 1 to 10, okay, you have probably seen me at an 8.
Also haunt related.
So that video is nowhere near even an 8.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, you've seen me much angrier than that. You've never seen me full angry. You've never witnessed that, and I hope you don't.
Just give me a chance.
Oh man. But no, it's like it was in reaction to my mind was spinning at that point. I put the information out there and I was not in a position to answer questions because everyone said, "Well, what does this mean? What do you mean? Like, where did this come from?" And I literally could not, because I didn't know, have the answers to some of the questions that were stated.
But here's the thing. If Briarberg doesn't exist, what does that actually mean? Is it the name? Is it the foundation? Is it the people? Because I went to a meeting with quote unquote Briarberg, and with Jamie, and Mason was there, and Morgan. And what does this mean? And what we learn a couple days after your video, which we'll get to,
right?
What does that mean? Because if Briarberg isn't real, then it sounds like someone that you're very fond of might be working with those same people that aren't Briarberg. So who are they? Oh,
I totally see. I see all of that. Here's an analogy which I don't think anyone's made. Think of a money laundering front. You have a fake company. You have a name. Mm-hmm. You have a job. You have cash. You have a commodity that needs to be manipulated and cleansed. Okay, well, rather than cash, what if that is information and data?
Yeah.
I'm just going to put the theory out there that Briarberg is in the business of laundering data. To what purpose, I don't know.
And that's another thing. If Briarberg is a lie, what exactly is the lie? Is it their mission? Is it the actual name? Is it the people? You know, there's so many different ways that could go because it's very vague.
Mm-hmm. I have always found their mission statement questionable.
All I know is that they had some good people with them, like, you know, Miles and Stephanie and,
Yeah, they did.
you know,
And maybe Joyce.
maybe. But I mean, why would they beat her to death or allegedly beat her to death?
Well, the theory is to make a point, to see how certain people would react, what actions would be taken.
Want to just go into the new video?
Go for it.
No, you, because she's your baby.
So Brian Bishop was called to a coffee shop in North Hollywood, and a Facebook video went live where he looks. It's funny. I love how people dissect the look and expressions of people in videos. And at one point, I know in my video, I got distracted by a light and I glance off to the side. And it's like, I'm sure somebody thinks I was not alone in the room. And it was like, no, I noticed something shiny off in the corner.
See, when people say the shiny things, it's actually real. This is proof.
So, but he looked concerned and he looked surprised, and he simply stated that he had been called to a coffee shop and he walked in and saw Joyce, who we believed had been beaten to death. So Joyce was not seen in that video. So people theorized that he might be faking this. And to what purpose would that serve? Personally, I am comforted by the idea that Joyce is alive.
Okay.
She reached out, she came to my home and she expressed concern for me. She followed up with a phone call that indicated that I could be helpful to her. And she seemed, in person, she seemed to me to be someone that I could trust. Although trust has recently been getting me into tight places.
Anyways, you know what this means, though?
What?
If Joyce is back and if she was not in on the fake beating, she's probably going to want revenge. And she's probably going to have, a quote-unquote army, like probably you and Brian. And if she's going...
She's not going to have a, quote, army. People like, fled her.
Anyways, my point is, you and Brian with her, and if she's coming after Mason, we'll meet again.
I might have a few reasons to seek revenge upon people.
I don't get the reference, but that's cool.
I'm sensing tension in the room.
Pun intended?
100%.
Hey. Anyways, so who knows about Joyce now? But I had another interaction with Brad, and it really makes me smile to see how far he's coming along. Because one of the things that he wanted to change about himself was to be more assertive. And he had a task, and that task was to meet with somebody. It was his choice, and to air grievances with that person. And I was lucky enough to be there for him. I was there at that meeting, and he did exactly what he was supposed to do. And that's what I'm going to say about that.
Oh, so he did air his grievances.
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe he's becoming a stronger and better person because of that, because of these tasks.
So it sounds like if you are interpreting current events correctly, you see Briarburg doing good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, some of the initial theories were that they were, deprogramming people.
Which is theoretically doing good too.
Yeah, and helping. They just want to help. But
Okay.
who's to say Mason is still part of Briarburg at this point?
Or Joyce.
Yeah.
We are in the thick of it right now.
Yeah, we have no idea what's going on. But mid-season event tickets went on sale. And, of course, frickin' OSDM puts it a one-weekend event the same weekend as the opening of Star Wars. Like, that's just like them.
And the weekend in December when the majority of Christmas parties will be happening because it's like 2 weeks out from the Christmas holiday.
No one cares about the Christmas parties when the new Star Wars movie is opening.
I already have 2 invitations for that weekend for parties.
There are no wrong choices.
So, yes, I understand. So I will be eggnogging my ass off that weekend.
Okay. Anyways, so for more information on the Lust Experience, you can go to thelustexperience.com, on Facebook, The Lust Experience, Instagram, The Lust Experience, and on Twitter, Lust_experience. So that wraps this one up.
One quick shout out, Mike. When I went to the Caden Project Walls Growth Inn recently, I ran into someone who has met you and met me through the
I'm
Lust
sorry in
Experience.
advance.
So, so don't worry, I apologized for you. Cass, we had a wonderful conversation, very quick, very brief. She was about to go into the Gaten Project as I was leaving and waiting on someone who was in the show, because we were going to connect for something else that night. And just, it was a really nice conversation. Someone who seems to be finding their way, discovering, exploring the immersive scene in Los Angeles. And it was just nice to talk to someone who was excited about new stuff, and she was looking forward to the Caden Project. I hope she enjoyed it. So, but I just want to say, nice meeting you again for the second time. And it was very funny, Mike, because inside the lobby for the Caden Project, there's some sofas and chairs that you sit down on, and there's lights in the corners. So there was this person sort of waving at me, and she was completely backlit. So I had no idea who it was. And so finally she said, "Hi," and I was like, "I'm sorry." And she said, "Oh, you met me," and like she started talking about how we met at a different event. And then finally I like stepped over and I positioned myself differently, and I literally had to say, "I'm sorry, I have no idea who you are because you're completely backlit and I can't see who you are." And she was like, "Oh, okay." And then we started talking about haunts and things that she had done and investigated. And I hope she enjoyed the Caden Project. But it was really nice, and you know, she has listened to the podcast, and we appreciate that. And it's always nice to meet and talk to people at events that we go to find out what they're excited about and what they're discovering. So it was great seeing you, Cass. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the project.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, so I think that wraps it up.
Yeah, a lot of stuff got crammed in.
Yeah. That's what she said.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm not as good at that as you are.
That's what she said too.
Case proven. Jeez.
Anyways, if you want to contact us, you can reach out at mike@myhauntlife.com or russell@myhauntlife.com with 2 S's and 2 L's. Find us on the web at myhauntlife.com, on Facebook and all the social medias, My Haunt Life. And you can leave us a message or text at 515-HAUNT-LA. That's about it. I'm Mike.
And I'm Russell.
Happy Halloween.
See ya.
Get out. We're done for now.
And they also have a pardon me. However, if you search those wow. Hey, it was worth a trip to Vegas to hang a night with you.
What? That made no sense because I wasn't in Vegas.
Oh, wow. And sadomastic of an 80s slasher picture. Actually, the producer is also the fight choreographer. Jesus, I'm going to hate editing this. If you want more information, look up their website. Their website is Collaborist. God damn. What is going on with me? And it's presented in association. What the fuck is wrong with me? It's one of those moments where you're in a dark room and then sudden.
What is happening right now?
I have no idea. We went to the haunted asylum of Coffin. So you should give the information because I've given.
I already did.
What?
I already did.
Instagram and social media and all
I
that?
already did that.
Really?
Yeah.
Where was I? Okay. They describe this as a multi-sensory what the?
Do you want to pause and take a break?
What is going on?
We can, or we can start back up.
Yeah.